You know, when LeBron made that call, I saw a dynasty fly out the window. I didn't blame him, but I knew that was a 10-year team. It was just a sad day for me and for our franchise because I wanted that dynam. Pat Riley looked LeBron James straight in the eyes and said the words nobody in basketball had the nerve to say out loud. You ran away when it got hard. Let that sit for a minute. Not a hot-take artist chasing clicks, not a podcaster looking for drama, not some retired bench player trying to stay relevant. This was Pat Riley, the most decorated executive the NBA has ever seen, the architect of dynasties, the man who built the very machine LeBron used to collect championships. And now he was finally pulling the curtain back and saying what had been locked behind closed doors for years. This is the kind of conversation that never fully leaks to the mainstream, but when it does, it shakes everything. What you're about to hear isn't just gossip, it's the full story, the real exchange, the one that makes you look at LeBron James differently, not just as a superstar, but as a man. Because this stopped being about basketball a long time ago. This is about loyalty, about pride, about what happens when the greatest player of his generation looks a legend in the face and chooses the easier road. Stay with me, because this runs deeper than people realize. As Riley admits, I had 2 to 3 days of tremendous anger. I was absolutely livid, which I expressed to myself and my closest friends. My beautiful plan all of a sudden came crashing down, and that team in 10 years could have won 5 or 6 championships. But I get it. I get the whole chronicle of LeBron's life. He did the right thing. I just finally came to accept the realization that he and his family said, you'll never ever be accepted back in your hometown if you don't go back to try. To understand why Riley's words hit so heavy in 2025, you've got to rewind to the beginning, back to when this partnership felt like destiny, back when it looked like 2 powerful forces were about to run the league without mercy. When LeBron chose Riley's organization, it wasn't just free agency, it was a statement, a loud one. LeBron had been searching for his identity for years, the kid from Akron, carrying sky-high expectations since he was 17, labeled the chosen one before he could even legally toast with champagne. He tried doing it his way before, and it didn't work. The finals losses, the endless criticism, the not one, not two jokes that followed him everywhere, every headline chipped away at him. Then there was Pat Riley. Riley isn't some regular executive sitting behind a desk. This is a man whose fingerprints are on more championships than most franchises will ever touch. He didn't inherit greatness, he built it brick by brick. He coached icons, he shaped locker rooms with pure will. He has forgotten more about winning than most people in the league will ever understand. So when LeBron walked through those doors, Riley didn't just offer him talented teammates, he offered him a culture, a code, a system built on one thing above everything else: toughness. Mental toughness, physical toughness, emotional toughness. Riley's whole identity screams one message: winning is not supposed to feel good. It's supposed to test you. It's supposed to hurt. And Riley truly believed LeBron could handle that heat. He went all in. He reshaped contracts. He made bold front office moves that had critics raising eyebrows. He sacrificed flexibility and future assets because he believed in LeBron's hunger. He believed this was the partnership that would define an era. And for a bright, electric stretch of time, it worked. The banners went up, the parades rolled through the streets, champagne sprayed everywhere. The legacy was being written in real time. Riley stood back, watching it unfold, thinking, this is it. This is the blueprint. This is the alliance that will be talked about.
LeBron, 6 years after playing for Miami, how do you feel about Pat Riley? Such a broad question, baby. I don't understand. Leaves it open for interpretation. Like, what? How do you, when you hear the name Pat Riley, what do you think about, how do you describe your relationship? I hear the word Riley, you think about probably one of the greatest minds that ever this game has ever had. He's won at every level. Seen a stat the other day that he's been part of a championship in 4 decades. But championships have a funny way of hiding cracks. When you're winning, nobody talks about tension. Nobody focuses on locker room politics. Front office disagreements get brushed aside. Quiet frustration, stay quiet. Success covers everything like a spotlight, too bright to see the shadows. But the moment the winds slow down, the moment doubt creeps in, that's when everything buried starts pushing back to the surface. And when it did, the conversation between Riley and LeBron changed forever. In the years after those championships, a quiet split started forming between Pat Riley and LeBron James. On the surface, everything looked stable, but behind closed doors, the gap was growing. Riley's vision was always about building something that lasted. He never believed in shortcuts. In his world, a franchise had to keep evolving, keep grinding, even when it felt uncomfortable, especially when it felt uncomfortable. Riley wanted bold moves, aggressive moves, the kind that protect your edge long term, not just for one season. He expected everyone, including LeBron, to trust the process, even if the roster wasn't perfectly polished at every moment. But LeBron had a different outlook. People close to both sides, the ones who sat in those meetings, described tension building slowly, month after month. No shouting, no chaos, just a steady drift. LeBron wanted certainty. He wanted the roster stacked in a very specific way around him. He wanted reassurance about the future. But Riley doesn't deal in guarantees. He understands the league shifts fast, injuries happen, cap space tightens, stars change their minds. He wasn't about to promise something he couldn't control. Meetings ended with handshakes, but no real agreement. Conversations circled the same points again and again, and quietly and private, a thought started to surface. LeBron wasn't fully bought into Riley's long-term plan anymore. Riley kept pushing forward. He kept coming back to the table. He kept trying to meet halfway. LeBron kept creating distance. Then one day, without the kind of direct face-to-face conversation Riley demanded inside his organization, LeBron was gone. That's the part people rush past because it's uncomfortable. LeBron James didn't leave in a way that matched the partnership they built. He didn't sit down with Riley and say clearly, "This isn't working for me." He didn't lay it out eye to eye. There was no deep, honest breakdown. For a man like Riley, that mattered more than headlines. Transparency was part of the code. Instead, Riley found out like the rest of the world did. Imagine what that felt like for someone wired like Pat Riley. His whole identity is built on directness, on loyalty, on handling business face to face, even when it stings. In his world, relationships inside the organization are sacred. If there's a problem, you say it. If you're leaving, you say it. You don't disappear. But in Riley's eyes, LeBron disappeared. People around Riley describe what happened next as a cold, controlled fury. Not loud, not dramatic. Riley doesn't slam doors, he doesn't rant. He gets quiet, still, and somehow that silence feels heavier than yelling ever could. In that stillness, he reportedly said something that stayed locked in that room for years. He didn't leave because it wasn't good enough. He left because it got hard. Those words didn't leak, they didn't trend. They just sat there, frozen in time. Here's what separates Riley from most executives who feel burned. He doesn't react fast. He doesn't jump on TV the next morning. He doesn't fire off emotional quotes. He waits. He watches. He lets time reveal things. And time did a lot. After LeBron left, the very hardships Riley had been warning about showed up anyway, just in a different city. Injuries stacked up. Playoff exit.
The ugly stretches. The nights when nothing clicks. The pressure when the spotlight feels heavy showed up regardless, and Riley watched. Every time a roster move looked more like chasing comfort than building grit, Riley noticed. Every time a team fell short in a moment that demanded raw, uncomfortable resilience, Riley saw it. Not with a smile, not with bitterness, just with awareness. People around Riley say he never celebrated those struggles. He's not petty. He's not rooting against anyone, but he pays attention. And the longer the years passed, the more those quiet words from that room carried weight. He kept receipts, every moment, every pattern. Over the years, Riley's opinion didn't fade, it sharpened. The day LeBron walked out didn't create that belief, it locked it in. Little by little, the subtext started slipping into public view. A comment in a press conference that sounded normal until you replayed it twice. A line about loyalty. A quiet salute to the players who stay and fight. Nothing loud, nothing reckless, just careful, layered language from a man who treats words like chess moves. Riley doesn't freestyle in front of microphones. Every sentence has intention. At first, most people missed it. They weren't listening closely enough, but they were about to. Then, 2025 happened. Pat Riley sat down and finally spoke. And what came out wasn't the polished corporate tone of an executive protecting history. It was controlled, but it was raw. It sounded like a man who had been holding something in for years and decided the truth mattered more than image. The quote spread through the basketball world fast. Before major outlets could even shape the narrative, social media had already exploded. And Riley, in his own steady voice, delivered the message he had clearly been carrying for a long time. He said that LeBron James, for all his greatness, had built a pattern of exiting when the road got uncomfortable, a pattern of choosing situations that felt more secure instead of staying in a battle that needed patience. Then came the line that hit like a shockwave. You can talk about legacy all you want, but legacy is built in the hard moments, and when it got hard, he ran away. Everything froze. Fans split instantly. There was no middle ground. One side felt validated. People who had hinted at this idea for years suddenly had authority behind it. Former players started speaking up. Analysts who used to tiptoe around the topic now sounded bold. Riley gave them cover. The other side fired back just as strong. Supporters called it bitterness, called it revisionist history, called it a powerful executive trying to protect his own myth by poking holes in someone else's. They labeled it everything except what some had quietly wondered themselves. And LeBron, he said nothing. That silence echoed louder than any press conference could have. No rebuttal, no long social media post, no emotional sit-down interview. Just quiet. And somehow, that quiet made the whole thing heavier. Let's be honest. LeBron James is one of the greatest players to ever step on a basketball court. That's not debate material. The numbers are historic. The longevity is almost unreal. 2 decades at the top of the sport. Championships, records, finals runs. Nobody is erasing that. But legacy isn't just math. It's memory. It's narrative. It's what people believe about who you were when things got messy. And now, Pat Riley, a man with more championship rings than most franchises, has attached a specific narrative to LeBron's name. Not about talent, not about stats, about character under pressure. A story about a superstar who, when facing adversity that demanded patience, resilience, and trust in a system he didn't fully control, chose to leave instead of endure. That's the claim, and the reason it won't fade in a normal news cycle is simple. It connects to moments people already remember. It connects to decisions that sparked debates long before Riley ever spoke publicly. How many times did LeBron face a roster that wasn't perfect, a front office he didn't fully agree with, a championship path that looked longer and rougher than expected? And how many times did he decide to relocate instead of ride it out? Riley isn't pointing at one exit. He's pointing at a mindset, a pattern under pressure. Whether you agree with him or not, the question he put on the table is massive. It's not about jump shots or playoff stats. It's about identity. Was LeBron great because he...
Pat Riley does not speak casually. He doesn't waste oxygen. He doesn't throw public shade for attention. His career has been built on accountability, on demanding toughness from stars, on setting a standard and refusing to bend it. And when he looked at LeBron James's legacy, he essentially said, not enough. Not enough staying power when staying hurt. Not enough willingness to endure discomfort. Not enough loyalty to the grind when it stopped being glamorous. Meanwhile, LeBron, the global icon who built an empire around legacy, leadership, and being more than an athlete, has chosen silence. And sometimes silence says everything. By the time the dust settled, this wasn't just an old story being recycled. It had turned into a full-blown legacy war. Front offices around the league were watching closely. Former teammates were being asked subtle questions. Even current players started choosing their words carefully when loyalty came up in interviews. Riley's comments didn't just poke at LeBron, they forced the entire NBA to confront something uncomfortable. Because here's the reality nobody likes to admit. Superstar movement changed the league. Player empowerment became the norm. Control shifted. Stars started steering rosters, shaping contracts, influencing coaching hires, and LeBron was the blueprint for that era. But Riley represents the old guard, the era where the organization set the tone, where players adapted to culture instead of the culture adapting to them, where you stayed and figured it out even when it wasn't pretty. That clash isn't personal, it's philosophical. To Riley, the badge on the jersey matters, the grind matters, the long haul matters. To LeBron, flexibility matters, leverage matters, maximizing opportunity matters. Both approaches created success, both built championships, but they tell two very different stories about how greatness should look. After the interview, insiders started leaking little details. Nothing explosive, just small confirmations that yes, there were meetings that felt tense. Yes, there were moments where Riley challenged LeBron directly. Yes, there were conversations about commitment that didn't land the same on both sides. None of it dramatic on its own, but stacked together, it paints a clear picture. Riley never begged anyone to stay. That's not his style. He sets a standard and expects people to rise to it. If they don't, he moves forward. That's how he's operated for decades. Cold, maybe. Effective, absolutely. LeBron, on the other hand, built his career on mobility and power. He understood leverage better than almost any athlete before him. He used free agency like a weapon. He kept pressure on organizations to meet his level. That strategy changed history. It also created friction with traditional power brokers like Riley. And now, years later, that friction finally has words attached to it. What makes this even more intense is timing. In 2025, LeBron isn't the young superstar chasing his first ring. He's an icon nearing the end of his career. Every conversation now is about legacy, about how the story will be told when it's all over. And Riley just added a chapter that can't be ignored. You can feel it in debates online, in sports talk shows, in barbershops. The question keeps popping up. When things got uncomfortable, did LeBron lean in or did he relocate? That question hits different now because history has a funny way of simplifying things. Years from now, people won't remember every box score. They'll remember themes. They'll remember stories. They'll remember labels. And Riley, intentionally or not, just introduced one that sticks: the runner. Fair or unfair, that word is floating around now. Not about speed, not about fast breaks, about departure, about movement when pressure spikes. LeBron's camp hasn't launched a public counterattack. No dramatic interviews, no sharp rebuttals, just calculated silence. That could mean confidence. It could mean strategy. Or it could mean they understand that arguing with Pat Riley—
Two giants, two philosophies, one unresolved tension. The truth probably lives somewhere in the middle. Winning in the NBA is never simple. Circumstances shift, injuries happen, front offices gamble and miss. Staying isn't always noble. Leaving isn't always weak. But when someone with Riley's resume questions your toughness, it lands heavy. Now the league is left with a storyline that won't disappear quietly. Every time LeBron's career is discussed, this quote will hover nearby. Every time Riley talks about culture and commitment, people will connect the dots. And the wild part? Neither man needs the other anymore. Their championships are secured, their resumes are stamped, their places in history are locked. But legacy isn't just about what you win, it's about what people believe you stood for when it mattered most. And thanks to one sharp sentence in 2025, that belief is now being debated louder than ever. At the end of all this noise, one thing is clear. This was never just about two men arguing over basketball decisions. This was about identity.
Pat Riley stands for endurance, for staying planted when the storm hits, for looking at pressure and saying, "Good, let it test us." That's the code he's lived by for decades. Championships weren't handed to him. He built them through grind, discipline, and demanding standards that most people can't handle. LeBron James represents a different era, an era of player power, of control, of understanding leverage and using it. He didn't wait for organizations to shape his future. He shaped it himself. That approach changed the league forever. It empowered a generation of stars to think bigger than contracts and locker rooms. Both men won. Both men built legacies that can't be erased. But when Riley said, "You can talk about legacy all you want, but legacy is built in the hard moments," and when it got hard, he ran away. He forced the basketball world to look at LeBron's journey through a different lens, and that's why this won't fade, because it taps into something deeper than stats. It hits at character, at how greatness is defined. Is greatness about always positioning yourself in the strongest situation, or is it about staying put and fighting through the chaos no matter what? There's no easy answer. Some fans will always say LeBron was smart, that he made calculated moves to maximize championships and extend his prime. Others will say true greatness means planting your flag and riding it out when things get ugly. Both arguments carry weight. Both have receipts. But here's what makes this story powerful. It's unfinished. LeBron's career isn't just numbers on a page. It's still being interpreted in real time. Every interview, every playoff run, every decision, they all add layers. And now Riley's words are part of that permanent record. Years from now, when documentaries break down this era, this moment will be in there. The quote, the reaction, the silence, because it captures a clash between two basketball ideologies that defined a generation. Old school loyalty versus modern mobility. Endurance versus strategy. Stay and fight versus move and reset. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Not that one man is right and the other is wrong, but that greatness looks different depending on who's telling the story. Riley told his version, calm, direct, unapologetic. LeBron told his through actions, through championships, through business moves, through influence that stretched far beyond the hardwood. Now it's up to history to decide which version resonates louder. But one thing is certain. That single sentence in 2025 cracked open a conversation that's not closing anytime soon. Every debate about legacy, every ranking of all-time greats, every heated sports talk argument will circle back to that tension. And that's what makes sports powerful. It's never just about the scoreboard. It's about pride,